also see in the contemporary modern society there are many different groups, and Prabhupada's genius was that he was able to reach many different groups in different ways. So, for example, along with the Sankirtan, Harinam regularly going out, the books regularly going out, Prabhupada instituted the Bhaktivedanta Institute. So, under the orders of Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj and others were reaching out to the scientific community, presenting Krishna consciousness in a way that would be meaningful to them and would actually attract them and bring them forward. So he had an incredible strategy, a very sophisticated, incredible strategy, which was always still true to the teachings of Krishna consciousness, to reach out to different audiences and to bring them closer to Krishna. So what we wanted to do is have the speakers share some experiences that they have and successes and realizations in contemporary outreach. And maybe we'll begin with Rasheshwar and Madhava, and then Siddheshwar will speak, I'll say something, and then of course we're very grateful to have His Holiness Chandramuli Maharaj here. Chandramuli Maharaj Ki Jai. As a very senior and experienced speaker, preacher, initiating spiritual master, and disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who has many decades of experience reaching out to people, and we'd love to hear his insights and realizations as well, and then we can open it out to the audience for questions, comments, etc. So I'll hand over, if you could also just say a few words by introduction, sure, just so we know who you are. And then
Hare Krishna, everyone. Very fortunate to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming. My name is Raseshwar Madhava Das, and I'm from Toronto. And when I'm not trying to progress in my bhakti, I work in the hospital as a pediatrician, and so that's my day work. And I try as best possible to bring bhakti into all the settings that I walk into, and this is really I find the joy of spiritual life is turning any situation into an opportunity to bring bhakti into the situation. And so because we were in a Bhagavad Gita class, or at least the theme was Bhagavad Gita, a verse that's very much inspired me. Does everyone know the verse 3.321 in the Bhagavad Gita? And if they do, please raise your hand, and if you could recite 321. No? Okay, so this is a very inspiring verse. 321 says, Yad yad achari shreshtas tat tat evatoro jana sayad pramana kurute lokas tat anuvartate. So it's said here that whatever act a great person performs, that common people will follow, and whatever example they set, all the world follows. And so this to me has a very inspiring verse, because we see how Prabhupada, he reached to all sectors of society, but to me this really refers to reaching out and making the leaders of the world Krishna conscious, and then that when the leaders of the world are Krishna conscious, that the general masses of people will follow. And so one of the projects that I've been tied to in trying to take inspiration to fulfill this verse is the way I came to Krishna conscious was actually through university outreach. So when they have clubs, Krishna conscious clubs or bhakti clubs at universities. And so my story is that while I was introduced to bhakti when I was much younger by my mother, have family members that were tied to ISKCON. But when it really fructified for myself was when I was in 2005, I was studying in the UK, where Prabhu, Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu was sharing bhakti, and I walked into his Bhagavad Gita class. And for me at that moment, everything really crystallized when I was 24 years old. And I thought, this is really what I want to spend my life doing. So it was really like an instant change. And I could see that at that stage, you can see that at the time of when students are in university, there's an open-mindedness, there's a thirst to learn not only about the world, but about themselves. And so I had the good opportunity of being in the UK for a little bit. I also lived in New York, where I got to see what outreach was there. And then I also spent a little bit of time in the ashram in Chowpatty and saw what sharing bhakti in the the school center there. So gathering all these ideas in COVID in 2020, I saw an opportunity that although maybe not so many people are interested in doing this seva, I thought, well, we can start it in Toronto. We'll open up clubs in different schools. And because everything was online, we don't need to travel to every school. We can just do it from one place, right? We could be in one location. We could open up schools. And I thought, well, let's give this a try. So I asked one of my godbrothers if I could speak to their daughter, because obviously I'm now like 20 years out of university at the time when this started. And I said, can I just, speak to your daughter? And so he said he would be happy to. So I connected with her and I said, would you be open to, if we supported you, to open up this club for Bhakti, Krishna Conscious Club? And we've named in Canada, the brand is Bhakti Yoga Club. And so would you be open to having this at your university? She's like, yeah, I'll try. And I said, this is how we could support you, and this is what we could do. And so we supported her in opening the club, and then she actually gave me names of her friends. He said, these devotees all go to these universities, just call them up. So you can imagine, I don't know any of these people, but I just, on inspiration from Prabhupada, I called 9 different people. And can you imagine in spiritual life, sometimes we try so many things and they don't work out. In this situation, all 9 people said yes to opening the club. And to me, I really felt this was Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada's mercy to really, give some energy to this service. And so the first year we had 9 schools, and we were running, as we could remember, programs online. And, over time, like obviously things went back to in person. But to me, I really see when we talk about, we have this term amongst devotees, chasing the rhino, right? Personally, I see the younger generation, they're the future rhinos. And so if we invest time in the younger generation, they will, and especially at the time when they're in university. There was a wonderful story that Kesha Swami had shared from his time when he used to do outreach at the universities. He used to go to a school every week. He used to go to school, and there was a person that used to come to the event, and he would just sit at the back. He wouldn't say anything. He would come every single week. And Mars never met him, but then years later, they were raising funds for the Haveli in the UK, just in the last maybe 5-7 years. And obviously, they had a target. And the person who had come to its events, someone went to Kesha Mars, said, hey, this person would like to have you over their house. And he's like, well, I've never met this person, but sure, we'll go. And as soon as Keshav Maharaj walked into their house, the person just handed Keshav Swami, he's like, I know you're raising funds for the Haveli, please, this is a blank check, write whatever amount you want. And Keshav Swami didn't even, had never met this person. And so the person he said, when I was in university, he said, I was going through a really tough time. And he said, every week I used to come to, the classes that you gave. And I used to just sit, I used to listen, and I used to walk away, and it really helped me at that, challenging time in my life. So he says, now I see that I can, I've been blessed, and I can support you, so you take whatever you need. And to me, I thought that was such a, again, we sometimes don't see the fruit of what we're doing with the younger generation until much later. But again, when we talk about this, what the leaders of the future will do, common people will follow. I genuinely believe in the core of my heart, after my experience seeing so many other people, that I have a lot of inspiration because of my own personal experience and seeing others, that these are the future leaders, and that if we invest time in them, and we've had so many interesting stories in the last 5 years of students, again, students of all different walks of life, they've come to our events, and then eventually they'll say, hey, can you be, I'm applying for a law school, can you be a reference? So I would support them with a reference letter. They got into, they would get into law school, and they said, now, hey, I'm here in Ottawa now, I'm not in Toronto, but is there a way that I can support the club there in Ottawa? So again, by their own inspiration, because of us, them coming to the events, us trying to support them in whatever stage of life they were at, we can see that we don't always see the fruit right away, but to me, these are the leaders of the future, and so many amazing experiences that Mahaprabhu and Prabhupada has blessed us with. So that's one specific project that I wanted to share that is, very close to my heart. I've gotten a lot of inspiration from Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu and so many other devotees. But just one, small example. I have a second, but I'll let Siddeshwar share. No, please. No, please. Um, did anyone have any thoughts or comments on anything that was just shared? No? Please. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it was a story that really crystallized that, we go there every week. Maybe there's not even so many people in the room. When I was in the when Buddha Bhavana spoke to me that day in 2005, there was the two organizers of the club. So and there was me and one other person. So there's only two people in the room, right? Technically, there was two people and Buddha Bhavana, and that devotee is still doing amazing seva in Singapore now. Prashant. It was Prashant and I. That's it. And so, yeah, the what it can lead to in the future can just be so immense. And so, the second seva that I wanted to just mention is, as we mentioned, this 321 is about reaching the leaders, and I thought about how can I reach some of the leaders in society. So myself, I'm a self-proclaimed. People may have heard of people like Tony Robbins and Robin Sharma. Have people heard some of these names before? They're in the category of self-help. Has anyone heard these names? Maybe raise your hands if you've heard these names. Yeah. So I really enjoyed learning about, hey, how can I develop myself? Because whatever I've learned, I've also applied in my spiritual life. But Robin Sharma, he happens to be from Toronto. His famous book is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And so I would go to his events in Toronto. And you'd meet a lot of like-minded people. They'd be from all different parts of the world. And so one of the ideas that I had is I would take our Vedic texts, books that, might be relevant to the people at these conferences. And so they would have big speakers come, John Maxwell, Deepak Chopra. And so everyone would sign up for, like, wait in line for their autograph. But I brought books to actually give them. And so it was a little bit different. But then after these conferences, we gave Robin Sharma Bhagavad Gita and different things. But then after the conference, all these people would be, we decided to have a chat group, and we would meet every 2 weeks. And so then there was an opportunity to, one of the leaders and the leader person who was organizing the gatherings, they said, hey, do you want to share something? And so at that time, I was doing my yoga teacher training in India because I wanted to learn yoga better, to bring it into the healthcare setting where I work in a hospital. And so I was learning yoga in India, and we were reading a book. Has anyone heard of the book? It's called The Book of Dharma by Simon Haas. Right? So I was reading, it's an excellent book, especially to introduce newer people to spirituality. And so I did just a session for the group of these, now we're home in Toronto, but because of the network we had formed, we had people from like maybe 30 or 40 different countries who were coming online, and we had an opportunity to share about just the principles of Dharma. And they were so inspired by this book and these principles of Dharma, they said, hey, can we learn more about it? So I said, hey, why don't we turn it into a book club where we can read together and go through this information in a more like slower and systematic way. So that book club started in 2021. And we're still now 5 years into the book club where we meet every single week. And so what's happened in those 5 years is that we went from Book of Dharma. Then Simon Haas, he's an initiated devotee. His name is Sundar Gopal. He has a book called Yoga and the Dark Night of the Soul. Has anyone heard of that book? Also a really powerful book. It's a Bhagavad Gita for beginners. And so we read that book. And at that time, while we were reading that second book, we had started doing a retreat. So my friend here, Harisham, he's from Chicago, now living in the UK. We had done our first retreat at Gita Nagri with some of the people that could come, but because it was COVID, not so many people could come from the group. And but it was still a tremendous experience. And then eventually, we because again we were in a group where everyone is a leader. Like people who came to this event, They were, a business leader, CEO of their company, so many different people, and from different parts of the world. But they're the yeah, there were people from all different faiths and backgrounds. And what was the common ground was that everyone came there with the objective of wanting to better themselves and improve themselves. So that's the angle by which by which Bhakti entered, was this idea that I want to be a better person. And so in 2023, then after COVID had finished, we had our what I would call our first real retreat in Vedanta in the UK with these group of people. At that time, we had we're now been together for a couple of years. The way we would start each call is they would listen to Maha Mantra, and then we would start into the call where we'd read some of the book together, and then we would have reflective questions on the content they were reading. But by 2023, Bhuta Bhavana joined us for the retreat. Then we started introducing chanting. So then they had an idea of what chanting was. And then in 2024, for the last 3 years, we've gone to India. We've taken this group to the Govardhan Eco Village, and then we choose one other city. So we've gone to Jaipur, Rishikesh, and this year was Nasik. And so each year we can see year on year, because now after we went to Govardhan Eco Village, they took inspiration from Radhan Swami. They said, hey, let's read the Journey Within. So before that, we had read Bhaktivedanta Swami's Leadership for the Higher Consciousness 2. And again, this group is a group of leaders, so they really took to what Maharaj was trying to say he would take a lot of excerpts from Gita and Bhagavatam and explain leadership, because it's Bhishma Dev's instructions. So again, we're always trying to think about what content is going to be relevant to this specific audience, and how can we share it in a way that's going to be relevant to our audience. And naturally, week on week, after we went to the Eco Village, we started reading Journey Within, and then at that time we started chanting. We started doing japa as a regular sadhana before we would do our reading. So half an hour japa, and the next hour and 15 minutes of reading and discussion. And so, what to say, like, this group has really come a long way now. Some group members have signed up for Bhakti Shastri, Bhagavad Gita courses, and these are people who really had no experience of bhakti or Krishna consciousness at all. So, the seva continues, but this is just one way that we've tried to our best to share the teachings of Prabhupada and what Mahaprabhu has given us.
And just before Sudeshwara speaks, I'll also just add to what Rick and what Risheshwara and Madhava has said, and that is that even some within the group are already interested in studying more deeply the Srimad Bhagavatam, so Bhakti Vaibhav, and also interested in understanding what it means to take initiation in Krishna consciousness, understanding what it means to have a spiritual master. And many of them, a good number of them, are the practice of the chanting is not just something they do 30 minutes before the call, but they do that as a regular sadhana as well, even though they're from different faiths and backgrounds and from all over the world, and they're different kinds of professionals. But because of the regular association and discussions, which Risheshwara and Madhava, beginning this project and really taking that responsibility and ownership for the regular cultivation of such individuals, that's really helped. And I know that also many of them are interested in seeing what they can do service-wise to give back as well. So just want to add that.
Yeah, I think one important thing in this seva is that people enjoy coming in the call even though they're from a Christian background. We have a couple people from the Middle East and Dubai, so they're Muslim, but they still join for the chanting and appreciate the Vedic knowledge that's coming through. And so the point here is that we can still have people from different faiths practicing their own faith, but still sharing bhakti.
And yeah, I just wanted to add that same thing, same project that I serve in as well, the Titans project. We try and make the teachings as accessible as possible. So we use common everyday language. We don't use any complicated terms. And sorry?
The devotee lingo.
Yeah, there's no devotee language, like everything, like I think the other day somebody mentioned Shastra, and they're like, oh, what does Shastra mean? What does karma mean? What does this mean? So everything we really have to break down, and just to really try and pitch it to where they're at. And it's been actually an amazing experience of taking these group of individuals through their journey. And even right now, we're going through what could be said to be like a difficult topic that we're discussing right now within our book club. But I found that because of Risheshwar Madhava's the relationship that he's built with these people over 4 or 5 years now, they still remain faithful to what we have to share, even though they've got doubts. They still are loyal. They stay committed. And maybe my doubt isn't answered now, but maybe it might be answered in some time. Maybe at another retreat that we're going to be having, another in-person retreat, maybe that's another space where we can actually delve into these topics at a deeper level. So yeah, it's been a wonderful journey for myself as well. I joined about 2 years ago, and yeah, it's been wonderful.
So just to build on a few things which were touched upon before. So I want to go back to the university outreach. So that's been going on with a good amount of success in the UK for some decades now. And so I'm not sure the exact number right now, but at one point there were over 26 universities in the UK which had regular programs for people about Krishna consciousness. And what we found, and also Prabhupada speaks to this, is that if we're able to reach out to and present Krishna consciousness in a way that's relevant to young people, especially when they're at that stage of life where they are at university and they're exploring their own journey in life. What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? What will I do in the future? That's one of the best times, if it can be presented properly, to present Krishna consciousness teachings. And and what we found over many years, well over 20 years, is that in doing this, it gives them a strong sense that their questions that they wanted to understand about themselves and about life, they get some meaningful answers, and they also get a practice that allows them to experience the truth for themselves, namely the chanting. So what's been happening over many years is that along with the regular programs at universities, and by the way, these programs are by the students for the students. So in many cases, it's a young person who's a devotee who's at that university, or even a favorable young person who's at the university arranging the society events, and then a speaker comes in regularly and gives a class. And so along with more broad topics such as, understanding how the mind works or anything like that, what they also start to introduce at one point is a book club. So they may be studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, or they may be reading, Nectar of Instruction, some small book, or some book of Krishna consciousness, but a regular book club where they can start to read, discuss, and dive into the philosophical truths. We sometimes, because we have so much teachings and classes, we sometimes forget that the revelation that you're not the body is a huge paradigm shift for the average person. The scientific understanding of God, right? That it's not just a belief, but there's a scientific process by which one can have spiritual realization. These are very, very powerful, profound, and highly impactful realizations and teachings that can literally change the course of a person's life. And then what they were doing, and they still do this, they would have both training events for the young people who are speaking at the universities. One of the things that build confidence in a young person is that they are given assistance, teaching, and training in how to present the philosophy for a particular audience, in this case, namely university students. And then there would also be big retreat events. So it could be retreats where people go away to different places, a group of youth come together for a few days and have inspiring classes, but also lots of kirtan, good food, maybe a bonfire, those things that the young people could be into, but all in a Krishna conscious way. And then also like a day retreat. So for many years at Bhaktivedanta Manor, at least once or twice a year, they would have a university student day retreat. And it would culminate in the students at the end of the day having a big kirtan, lots of singing, lots of dancing. And you could see even people who were there for the first time, you could see them just in complete ecstasy, in a, just completely letting go of their inhibitions, jumping up and down, singing, dancing with their peers. And it was always a very, very powerful experience for them. So through these programs, many, many young people have come to Krishna consciousness of all backgrounds. And there's also a wonderful project right now called the Studio 108. So the temple in London, ISKCON London Temple, they've hired out a particular place. Maybe Isabel, and I think you're familiar with that. Maybe Isabel, a few minutes from the temple. And so the monks at the ISKCON London Temple, they do book distribution, and when they meet young people, they tell them about Studio 108. And they invite them to come, and they have programs, I think, 3 times a week. Is it Wednesdays, Sundays, and Fridays? Yeah, so regular programs. And again, they're making many, many devotees. Like, in fact, at this point, they have so many devotees moving in full time to the temple, right? And these are very, very, educated, stable young people of many. It's actually a lot of Westerners coming, and they're actually in Saffron. Many of them have taken initiation. That project is also being led and inspired by His Holiness Deva Amrita Maharaj, who's very successful. I think they called it originally the Loft program, which is something that he's done in, I think, Australia, New Zealand, and maybe other places as well. So I think it's really important to share some of these different outreaches, because it's also important for us as devotees to see the transformative effects of the practice and the teachings, because that also helps us to build more faith, that we see people from all different backgrounds and situations, which is really the prediction of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, that people from all different backgrounds, if the teachings are presented to them sincerely, they can take up this Krishna consciousness, because it is literally what the scripture says. It is really the eternal nature and identity of all individuals. So I just want to share some of these things, just because what we find is that the more we share some of the different preaching techniques and programs which are going on, the more it can give us also stronger faith in the predictions of Srila Prabhupada, in the teachings of Krishna consciousness, but it can also help us to try to do something to support the spreading of Krishna consciousness. Whether it's directly speaking, indirectly, which is some kind of facilitation for the Krishna conscious outreach, and in that way attract the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, which will also help us in our spiritual progress as well. So I just want to share a few thoughts on that. One other point before I hand over to His Holiness Chandramuli Maharaj is Rasheshwara Madhava mentioned that when we were speaking at the London School of Economics, in that class that you mentioned, it was himself and a person called Prashant. So a long-time friend of ours, Prashant Joshi, so he was doing his master's study at London School of Economics. So we were mentoring him at that time. And then when he graduated from university, he started working. And so he went to work for one of the top consulting firms in the world, Ernst & Young. And when he went to work there, they asked him to be the Hindu faith representative. So he agreed, and then he asked me to start giving Bhagavad Gita classes at his company. So we would have a group of professionals coming regularly, weekly, to Bhagavad Gita classes at the company. And they would also, the temple in London, they would provide the prasadam, so there'll be prasadam at the event, and they would start reading and discussing and also chanting. And that was going on regularly. And then from there, that expanded into doing like big kind of corporate events. And I know that Sudeshwari, you were also involved in that. And so then you'd attract literally hundreds of people per event, having some kind of discussion. And then we'd also have more small, intimate events. And I remember one time, His Holiness Chandramuli Maharaj also came, and I think he was speaking. I think it was Ernst & Young. Yes, you remember you came and he blessed us by giving a presentation there. Yes, Ram Nomi. Yes, he was speaking about Lord Ram and leadership and so on. So again, because Lord Chaitanya has given this prediction, we want to encourage everyone to really think about what can I do to be involved in spreading Krishna consciousness in whichever way, shape or form, and do not feel that it's not going to happen or these people won't accept it. There are actually unlimited opportunities. If we can think about how to try something, and especially I'm very enthusiastic about what Risheshra Madhava said as well, the youth are the future. If we can find ways to reach out to those young people, along with everyone else, then because they are in a space in their life where they're asking questions, they're inquisitive, they want to understand the truth, they want to understand themselves, that can be a great opportunity to bring those individuals to this spiritual understanding in such a way that it will change their life and it will help to spread the movement. One devotee I know in London, we were speaking at his university, and he came to Krishna consciousness through the university programs. Then he started working, and he was very successful in the financial field. So for years, he's also been providing resources, funds for many different Krishna conscious projects. So we just want to really emphasize that point, that as we reach out, then new things become possible because of the outreach. So there's a magic that happens in sharing or helping to spread the Sankirtan mission. So I just wanted to leave that there and then hand over to His Holiness Chandamuli Maharaj if you would be kind enough to share any realizations that you have on outreach and the importance of spreading Krishna consciousness.
You want me to speak theoretically or philosophically or directly about programs? Okay. I have another form of outreach. We engage somebody in some service. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyana Jana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shigadavenam Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, it's really a kind of a broad subject, but I was in New Vrindavan, that's where I began my Krishna consciousness, so we didn't have much external contact with the environment. We were mostly doing our service within the community. But the community got in trouble legally, and we wound up, some of our members wound up in jail. And so was one of them in the local jail, and we started to make arrangements to go visit that person. And then I was part of the group that went to visit these people. And then I started to see that actually this is an area of preaching that we're not really exploring as a society, people inside of penal institutions. So I thought maybe we can expand it. And then I did some research, and I found that this one person who had made an attempt to reach different jails around America by writing letters and asking if he could come in, but practically the result was zero, because you don't really get any effect when you write these people. You have to go to the place or know somebody inside before you can actually start preaching in these places. So I started to write letters getting different names for people who were in jail who were practicing Krishna consciousness. And that started to build. And from this letter writing, we would introduce Krishna consciousness in a very basic way, trying to give them an understanding that even though they're limited in their life activities, they can also experience happiness in a place where there is no happiness, inside of a jail, obviously. And using that theme, we were introducing Krishna consciousness from different angles of vision. And then I started visiting some of these jails and meeting some of the inmates and spending time with them on a one-to-one basis and just getting to know them and developing in a relationship. And that started to span out, where I met more and more people by going into the jails. And then from there, I was looking for opportunities where we could do some preaching in the jails itself. Fortunately, we came across a few of the institutions that were a little bit more open. This was in the United States. And we got some permission to come in and do programs. And then doing programs, we not only had the persons that we were connecting with, but some of the other inmates would also come. And pretty soon we had a regular program going in different jails. And then, of course, the jails are always, when they see that you're getting too successful, they move the prisoners into another place. So they don't want them to become too powerful within their institution and started to become prominent. So they have that way of what we say diffusing our attempts. Well, we continued, and those that we were able to keep contact with, we started to send them different tests on Bhagavad Gita, tests on Nectar of Devotion, tests on Nectar of Instructions, like that, and other shastras also, smaller books. And we would send them the questions, they would write the answers, send it back, we would mark them, and then give them some kind of rating. And then that way they were starting to learn the philosophy in a systematic way. So that went on, and then after doing that for so many years, I started to develop a relationship with many of them, and that turned into a more personal way for them to express themselves on what they liked about Krishna consciousness, what is their understanding of Prabhupada. We even did a Vyasa Puja book for Srila Prabhupada, written by the inmates themselves, which was really good. We got so many entries about their attraction to Srila Prabhupada based on what he has given them, and a little bit about what they understood about Krishna consciousness in terms of their practice. And that spanned that out into two books. One was called Holy Jail, and the other one was called Forbidden Voices. Holy Jail came out in 2010, and Forbidden Voices in 2015. So based on that, then we started to distribute these books to the broader ISKCON society. And we saw that also others started to get interested in that same type of preaching wherever they were in different places in the world. So now in many places in the world, there are smaller groups who are starting to reach out to inmates in their local areas in different countries. So that's going on. And it's not a really highly communicative system that everybody knows what's going on, but we know that there's preaching going on in many places around the world. And inmates are actually, what they get out of Krishna consciousness and what we try to give them is that although they're in a very, what we say, limited situation and their focus is to get out, we try to emphasize that you can be happy even within the jail by learning the science of God consciousness and know that God is always with you and you can communicate, connect with Him, and develop a relationship with God even in this situation and find satisfaction and happiness. So that's the essence of our expression or our outreach, to make them feel somewhat satisfied in spiritual knowledge, even in a place where everything is limited, everything is what we say difficult, and it is difficult for many of them. But many of them have become transformed. Really hardened criminals have become gentle. There was one person, he had killed 8 people. He was a gangbuster in Los Angeles, and he was in jail for life. And somehow, he was writing me. I connected him to Vaisheshika, and Vaisheshika took some time and developed a relationship with him, and then wound up giving him initiation and gave him the name what was his name? Balavan Nitai. Balavan Nitai. And so one day he wrote me a letter, and it was he was kind of incredulous about his own transformation. He said, I was out in the yard. They have this place where the inmates walk around, and they could do exercises, they can run, they can, they get out of their cells, and it's just an open area. And then one person came up to me, and he asked me he says, are you, his name was, what was his name? Ben Baker. He said, are you Ben Baker? He said, yes. He said, oh, you killed my best friend, and then he attacked him. Now, Ben, who's Balavan Nitai, he said I could have finished him off in a minute. But since I came in contact with Lord Nityananda, I didn't do that, and I just put him on the ground, hold him down until the jailers came and took him away. He said, I surprised myself. In other words, he had become somewhat gentle, at least in proportion to his situation. Because a person like that, if you would attack him, he would be just equally, trying to, defend himself and also fight back. But he didn't. He didn't even try to fight back. He just simply put the person down so they could control him. And he wrote me a letter, and he said, I can't believe it. He was thinking, I'm never like that. And I said, yeah, well, welcome to Nityananda's mercy. So this is what's happening to many of them inside. They're actually becoming more, they're developing some of the qualities, or many of the qualities of a Vaishnava, even within that limited environment. So we've been doing this preaching for a long time, and I have some programs coming up within the next week also. In the UK, we're doing some more preaching in different jails in the UK coming up, starting on Tuesday. So we continue with this preaching because these people, they have really not a lot of idea what Krishna consciousness is. Most of them read a few books. They have some wrong understandings or some own created understandings of what spiritual life is. And when we come in there, we give them a chance to ask questions. We respond to their questions in the best way we can help them to understand. And then they become, and we bring in books, and then we distribute books usually to the libraries or to them directly when we come into for programs. So it's planting the seeds. It's planting the seeds because, they can't really practice beyond their limited environment, but at least many of them are actually finding hope inside of the jail now with their developing their relationship with Krishna. So this preaching is going on, it's expanding, and we hope to do more and more. I take every opportunity to go whatever, and there are devotees who are scouting around, writing to different jails, meeting different, coming to jails and asking if we can come in, and we're getting some results. We had a database of about 1,600 inmates at one time who were actually contacting us and getting our books, writing letters to them, and practicing Krishna consciousness. So I'm bringing this up because it's a little bit different than the normal preaching. Some people don't want to preach. They think, I've been criticized for this type of preaching, saying these people they've committed horrible crimes, and therefore they should be punished. Why should we go do anything for them? But that's not Lord Chaitanya's movement. Patita papava hetu tava avatar. Mosamba patita pavam napaye payar. He goes to the lowest of the lowest of the lowest. The more unqualified, the more you become qualified to receive this mercy. And we know Jagai and Madai were the worst of all criminals, but they were corrected. And one other thing that I somehow or other found an opportunity to develop, and it's been really, really successful, is during the COVID time, when people weren't able to move around so easy, we started this online class where I would just go online and with the help of a few other devotees tried to contact some of my disciples, mostly persons who were disciples, and we started an online discussion on the various shastras. It wasn't systematic. We were doing whatever. We were doing holy days. We were doing appearances and disappearances of great sadhus. And then one day I decided, let me do something systematic. So we began Bhagavatam. And I was doing verse by verse, and we're still doing it. Today I did a verse on the 3rd canto, 4th chapter. So we're up to the 3rd canto. And since then, we've developed amazing amount of interest coming from the outside. Even though the COVID restrictions are no longer in place, people are still coming on, and they're telling their friends, and they're coming on, and people are coming forward for initiation. It's amazing. One after another, they all want to get more serious, because we're doing systematic study of Bhagavatam. I speak for a half hour, and we get 45 minutes to an hour worth of questions every day. We have to cut it off because of the time period sometimes. A lot of interesting questions, people coming from their friends, people hearing about the program, and this is actually making devotees. And they're coming forward, they want to inspire for initiation, and things are expanding in that area. So when I started doing it systematic, then it started to develop and more of an interest, and people start coming on. So we've been doing that for 6 years now, ever since March 2020. So, yeah. So that's, huh? Yeah, every day. And if I somehow am unable to make the time period, there are 1 or 2 other devotees who are ready to do the class. So we trained a few of them also to take up that service. But I try my best. I did one today. I stayed back just to do a class today, because I find it's very inspiring for me. Gives me a chance to, go into the philosophy. Prahlad Nrsingadev ki jai. So, and then one thing I try to do is to inspire others to do the same thing. Find ways to connect to groups that are already preaching, or if you haven't had, or if you were inspired, figure out ways how you can start your own outreach program. And devotees are starting to do that. And they're doing these WhatsApp groups online. They're going to different yoga centers. So one of my main forms of preaching is to inspire others to take up the preaching, explaining how we have been given so much in the form of this Krishna consciousness. It's changed our life for the better. It's giving us a foundation to develop a relationship with Krishna and ultimately achieve the goal of life, to go back home, back to Godhead. So I try to inspire people okay, you've been given so much, now share it with others. Be grateful for what you have, and show that gratefulness by giving it to others. So that's one of the main things that I emphasize. And that's working also. Others are starting to do little group preachings in different areas of wherever they are. And so, there's so much going on. One time I was in, where was it? Montreal. There was a summer festival that goes on every year there. I was in one place, I can't remember. It was Ravi Shankar's place in Montreal, Quebec, yeah. And one day we had a class, and the class was, how many ways can we actually do outreach? And so it was just collecting ideas in terms of different categories. We can preach through writing, We can preach through, yoga groups. We could, in other words, and we came up with 44 different ways to do outreach. So it's unlimited. And we start thinking, because the world is so diverse, and you can connect with people in their different, what we say, ways of how they live, and then try to interject Krishna consciousness in that way. But another way, which I find very effective, and it has nothing to do with preaching, it has to do with developing relationships. And that is trying to spend as much time with devotees and others who show a little bit of interest in Krishna consciousness. Become more personal. Take an interest in the person. It's a little bit more of a ongoing program, but the idea is by showing some interest in the person, showing some concern for their own life and trying to help them go through their own struggles, then we interject Krishna consciousness from there. And I find that very effective, that when you develop relationships with people, then immediately that relationship turns into something Krishna conscious. Because that's what we're coming for, ultimately. I'll tell a story. Can I tell a story? It's about Prabhupada. I like Prabhupada stories. This story was related to me a couple times from different people. That Prabhupada was traveling, he was in Europe, and before he got to this one place, there was one lady that was coming to the temple, and she was not what you could say dressed properly for temple activity. She had all kinds of makeup. Her hair was up, short skirts, mini skirts, and whatever else that goes along with all that. So she came to the temple, and the devotees were a little disturbed by her. They said, "Well, very nice you come here, but you can't really dress like that. It's not proper for worship." And she listened, but she didn't change. So she came back another day, same way. So they did it again, but this time they were a little stronger. We explained, this is not the proper, attire for temple. So but she was attached. She was attached. So, and then the third time it happened, and then they really got heavy with her, and then she said, "I'm not coming anymore." So, but then she heard that Prabhupada was coming, and she said, "Oh, let me meet their teacher," because she heard about Prabhupada. She's just someone who heard about our movement, and she took an interest in trying to find out more. So Prabhupada came, and she decided to come. When Prabhupada came in, when Prabhupada came into the temple, she came also. But Prabhupada sat down first, and then she walked in. And while she was walking in, same way, she didn't change her dress. Prabhupada said, "Oh, thank you for coming. You look very nice today." He complimented her. Devotees were heavying her out. And she just melted. She went home that night, and this is how it was described to me. She took all her hair down and just said, "If this pleases the devotees, then I'll do it." Yeah. Because Prabhupada saw her not as what she was, he saw her as a soul. And he related to her in that same way, like that. So that's also preaching. Yeah. Being, not so much trying to change people, but trying to, connect with people on the level of, kindness or concern. That's a nice way to preach. It's not, we don't do it as preaching, we just do it because it's natural. And then comes by way of, because we're in Krishna consciousness, that attracts people in that way.
So first of all, thank you, Marge, for sharing that. I think there's a lot of very powerful realization. I know that's something that we've spoken about, the Risheshwar Madhuri, you do very, very well, and also Siddheshwar, which is build the relationship with the individuals. So we have some time. What we wanted to do is just open up for any questions or comments related to anything that was shared in terms of the importance of outreach, how it also helps us, builds our faith, and the importance of building relationship and showing that kindness to help people to understand that there is a supreme person who really does care for them and wants the best for them as well. Do we have any questions, any comments?
Thank you so much. I have a question. This is actually to everyone, maybe mainly to Mars. Because you mentioned about like developing friendships and being very personal. And I've had the experience of, in terms of preaching, like trying to develop relationships with people, like younger people coming to certain preaching programs in London. And sometimes they feel like they don't want to go any further. Like they come to the preaching programs, they know it's about Christian consciousness, they like to do seva, but there's something about the philosophy or something about the culture that stops them from wanting to go any further. And so I feel like I still try to be their friend, but sometimes I wonder, am I just encouraging them in their sort of, mundane day-to-day life? Because if I try to mention anything even a little bit spiritual, they're just a bit resistant towards it. So I just wonder what to do in that circumstance.
You can do that one.
Thanks, Mark. I'll start. So, in those situations, I think, at least the way I would take it in the situation is that, I think care goes a long way in those situations. I also think that, everyone's looking for Krishna, but just in a different way. So, by getting to know people better, I found that over time we eventually find a way that they're genuinely, they have a genuine interest, and there's a genuine connection we can make to the process of bhakti. So I think in those situations where we find there's a little bit of resistance, like I'll give you an example when I'm at work, right? So sometimes it's as simple, because people look at my lifestyle and like a lot of the nurses and doctors are like, what are you doing, right? And so for me, like just talking about just the lifestyle, why I do certain things, like, hey, you're also interested in your health, you're interested in eating healthy, whatever it might be. But again, like if we just explore different aspects of their own life that they want to improve, make better, there's something for everyone in bhakti. I genuinely believe that. And so it's just a matter of time, care, and patience in those situations. My just 2 cents.
I think you said it. Time, care, and patience. And keep in contact every once in a while when there's some event at the temple. You say, oh, there's a big program now. Why don't you come for, spend some time, come to John Manasam or some important part of our celebration program. Can invite them. They'll change when they have an experience. As they get more and more involved in coming in contact with the activities, they get an experience, and that's what changes them. Maybe our preaching or whatever we can say can only take them so far, but then when they have an experience, so we want to give them a chance to have more experiences by inviting them to different programs. Does that make sense?
I was just thinking also along that line that sometimes, when I've stepped back and, different individuals, maybe I'm not that individual to take them on their next step, but maybe we know someone else that could take them on their next step. And so I genuinely feel like one of my roles is just connecting them to potentially a situation or a person that could take them on their next step. And then I feel like that's also an important seva when we feel like it can't be ourselves.
It's like I always team up with Bhuta Bhavana, and we do programs every year. And I know I just speak general philosophy based on Prabhupada, but he takes it in a practical way and expands it and gives a more broader vision. And I feel now they're getting a more complete and what we say, more rounded understanding how Krishna consciousness can come from different angles. So he's expert at that.
Maharaj is very kind that he allows us to have his association because it helps to purify us. And I also feel that when we have the association of very great devotees, very pure devotees, advanced devotees, then it's by their own devotion that it uplifts the environment. So sometimes, even if we're doing something, as Rasheshwar Madhav said, if we can bring them also in the association of more advanced devotees, then that really makes a practical difference, because it's that bhakti that's coming from them that helps to penetrate the heart and facilitates Krishna reaching out to them to bring them up. So I think that's really important.
Just overall Sankirtan principle is that it's not just us. Krishna is really pleased when we include others in the sharing.
Does anyone else have a question or comment? Because the microphone says if anyone else has a question, comment, anything they would like to ask. Yes, Hari Sham.
Maharaj, I was wondering, with your daily Bhagavatam Sanghas, since there's lots of new people joining, how do you help them keep the thread? Because, imagine you're joining in the third canto and you've missed the first and second canto. So if you're new, I'm just curious, how do you contextualize your katha so that even someone coming new doesn't feel completely lost in the Sangha?
Well, I guess you might say that's the art of preaching, to take the philosophical teachings and present them from different angles of vision. I try to do that without changing the essence of what is being said in the Bhagavatam itself. And I inspire people to ask questions. And I put a lot of emphasis on that part. I don't speak long. I speak sometimes 20, 25 minutes, the most a half hour. And then leave it up to them to... And then usually we always get questions, and then questions inspire other people to also come and questions. So there's some people I notice who come online every day. They're there, but they don't ever ask questions. But they keep coming. So now obviously they're interested to hear. So we leave it to that, what we call it, just constant exposure to the philosophy, like that. And then I use a lot of examples that Prabhupada used in order to help illustrate the points in the philosophy. I like to use what Prabhupada said and then repeat that in relationship to whatever's being said. And I find that's very effective, because when you repeat Prabhupada, you're repeating, the pure devotee. It has potency. Yeah, it has potency. And yeah, we're quite. It's amazing. Every day, not every day, but every couple of weeks, somebody comes forward for initiation. It's just like it's snowballing now, and then it keeps. And then people who come online, they tell their friends also, and then they come and get interested, and then things expand the amount of people who are coming. So it's nice. And every once in a while, I'll do something out different. Like I'll give a whole class on health. And people are always interested in how to maintain my health, how to, keep my health, how to live in a more healthy life. So I use things that Prabhupada said, along with other things that I come from other sources, and speak about health. I'll do it every once in a while, just to, and they're interested and want to hear about that, because it's supportive to Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So yeah, little variety every once in a while.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So if there's no other questions, we'll just say, first of all, thank you to His Holiness John Muli Maharaj for gracing us. Thank you for being here and speaking and raising the consciousness. For speaking and sharing very wonderful realizations and practical things to consider that we can use to really fulfill the mission of Srila Prabhupada. Thank you to Risheshwara Madhava Prabhu for sharing your experiences in terms of reaching out to professionals and also university. Thank you, Siddheshwara Prabhu, also for sharing your experiences also with the Titans and other things that you do, insights that you have on this particular topic. So what we'd like to end with is to just say that we want to invite all of you in whichever way, shape or form that you can to be as involved as you can in sharing the magic of Krishna consciousness. As Maharaj said, that he has a regular Bhagavatam Sangha online, so if people would like to find out more details, obviously we could get that information to you. 'Cause I can see a few people nodding already, so they could join Maharaj's Sangha. And if this is something that interests you in terms of doing some outreach in whichever environments that you're in, whichever audiences that you can reach out to, or assisting others who are doing something, maybe there's some outreach that you're doing here, programs of youth, programs of other professionals or other community groups, anything like that, please do get involved as enthusiastically as you can, because the more people that become Krishna conscious and honor Krishna consciousness, Maharaj will tell me often, the more the entire world will change, the more the atmosphere of the world will change. So please do not think that anything that you're doing is not important. It adds to a much greater transformation in the world. The more people who are chanting the holy names of Krishna, who are accepting Prabhupada's gift of Krishna consciousness, and who are sharing that with their friends, their families, those who they come into contact with, the more the entire world will become like Vaikuntha in that sense. Okay. Yeah, please.
Just to wrap up on what Prabhu was saying, that Mahaprabhu, he gave, all his instructions were complete. One that I always consider this the foolproof instruction that Mahaprabhu has given us for our spiritual lives. It's completely airtight. He says, Yara deka tarakara Krishna upadesh, amara jnana guru hana taradesh. So he said, it is my order that you also become guru or teacher. And we may say, well, I'm not a guru or teacher, but a guru or teacher is even one that connects, right? So how Maharaj was saying that, when we connect, we just acknowledge, we appreciate. These are also ways of being an example. And I will tell you that, it's the most exhilarating experience you can have in your spiritual life when you start sharing. Every time that I sit down and I think, Krishna, what am I going to say? And, you read, you meditate, there's that manana on the content. It goes deeper within you. And these qualities that I read in the books before of patience, tolerance, compassion, all these qualities, I've seen them at least, a little bit increase over the years. Just when we go out there, but it takes one thing. We just have to be willing to take a risk for Krishna. And then he for sure will come with time and consistency. So I just wanted to end on that as related to both what Prabhu and Maharaj was saying.
Yeah. Prabhupada would say there's two aspects to Krishna consciousness. Become Krishna conscious and give Krishna conscious to others. He said that's the complete formula for our practice in devotional service. Not that we're satisfied with our own Krishna consciousness. And actually, you can't really maintain your own Krishna consciousness unless you start giving it to others. Only then does it grow. So you don't have to do anything individually. Just see what's going on and connect with groups and other programs that are going on and become part of it.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, so I think they're about to have Gaurati, so we'll stop there. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Janita Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari. Shri Shri Prahlad Nrsimha ki jai. Hare Krishna.